inventories. Inventories, inventories. We put items into them, we take items out of them, and sometimes we even move items around inside of them. The humble video game inventory is a often taken for granted staple feature of many game genres, but RPGs in particular. Many a beginner game developer has bitten off more than they can chew by starting out in a genre which requires an inventory and all of the horrible menu design, UI programming and data architecture that goes into an otherwise simple seeming feature. We're so used to seeing inventories in other games that some of us neglect to realise that making one can be a real pain in the backpack. But whether it's a gridded, spatial type of thing, or just an encumbrance number, having a sense of our digital avatar's luggage and what they can carry can provide a fun subsystem inside of a game, forcing a player to make crunchy moment-to-moment decisions about which items to keep and what to leave behind on the ground. So what if that was the whole game? That's the premise of Inventory Quest, or Inventory Quest. Inventory Quest is a game where all you do is manage a hero's inventory. So let's see if you can get a whole game out of that.
So I'm just going to take you through the tutorial first, I think. Let's take a look. Our heroes have gone on the quest against the Lord of Loadout and his legion. The heroes can explore and fight, but they need help for making a good loadout. They hoard every piece of loot they can find. They need to figure out what is worth of keeping and equipping. Maybe that should say worthy, I don't know. I don't want to get into proofreading all of this, but one thing I will say, much better to have this text not in all caps. I need you to make sure that they have the best possible items equipped and potions in their belt and keep them alive. There's a lot of telling rather than showing here, which is a shame because the early part of the tutorial was much more interactive. Some of this stuff later on in development, if you continue working on this, you might find that some of this is too much front-loading of information, and it might be better to have some of this information in like item tooltips later on. Each time the hero beats an enemy, they gain UXP. After the UXP bar fills up, the hero levels up. This is so thorough. I think some of this can just be shown rather than told. I appreciate the amount of effort that has gone into telling us all this stuff. Got this problem where I'm playing this on full screen and it makes this pixel art font look really hard to read because it's blown up so much. You have no control over what items the hero finds and picks up, but you are the one to decide which ones to equip. This is the sort of thing that's good to put in the marketing of the game. It's the sort of thing that's good to indicate in the Steam thing, but I wouldn't necessarily tell people this in the tutorial because finding out that possibility space of all the things you can do in the game, you don't need to tell people that in a tutorial. So I have to click no skill at the start of the game before I can click on start. That's maybe just me being a dumbass, but if I get it wrong, then someone else is going to get it wrong, you know. We're going to be the strength character with no skill. So I think if this is the default, it would be better if it's already selected, because I was like clicking around and then didn't realize I was supposed to actively choose no skill, because it's not really a choice. Start by equipping a hand item. Okay. Put the potions in my pocket. Stabby knives. Where can I put them? Ah, I see. So it does light up the thing that you can swap things for. So I'm occasionally struggling with knowing where I can put something. At the moment, what's happening is the helmet is flashing to show that I have a helmet and I can put it there, but I think what would be better is when I pick up the helmet, if something then highlights to show me where I can put it, I know where a helmet goes. That's not really a problem. But with stuff like these throwing knives, I didn't know where I could put them. But at the moment, I can't use them because I don't have the stat that's needed.
I'm a big fan of games of this type that are sort of minimalistic reinterpretations of some bigger, grander style of game that I like. Hitman Go, the mobile game, is a great example of this. It distills the essence of Hitman into a tiny little board game feeling mobile puzzle. Inventory Quest also reminds me a little bit of a board game called Role Player, which is a dice management game where the entire game is just based around the character creation screen part of a fantasy RPG. You spend 30 minutes making a Dungeons and Dragons character and their stats, and it's set up so that you can actually use them as a Dungeons and Dragons character at the end of the game. What sort of positive lessons can we take away from this game? I think this game is such a good example of a strategy for coping with scope as an indie developer. Now, when we talk about project scope, we're usually talking about the size of a project. You know, how many levels is this game going to have? How many variations of enemies or characters or equipment or whatever? But the metaphor of scope has a bit more to it than that, because it's also about focus. So you can think of scope in literal terms as sort of being like a telescope. So when you play a big AAA fantasy game, it's like looking through a telescope that's been zoomed right out, and you can see the whole land, you can see everything in it, but nothing's being shown in much detail. And that's what the common complaint about games by developers like Ubisoft is, that you have this massive amount of content, but a lot of it feels very samey. Games like Inventory Quest or Role Player are taking the same sort of fantasy world and zooming in on one or two parts of that experience and then cutting other ones out, or sort of treating them as things that are happening in the world but off the screen. This is such a smart creative route to go down as an indie developer, especially if you're a solo developer with a limited skill set. For example, notice how the emphasis on the interface in this game means that the developer can evoke so much of a dungeon crawl without having to focus on the characters or animating them.
So I've already forgotten that I'm supposed to be throwing stuff away. Okay, nearly got a full loadout now. I think there's some rarity colouring. Yeah, there is. It's got rarity colours on the loot. Fine. Okay, we're going to put that in the bin then. Get rid of some of this junk. I'm getting legendary things very early. I don't know if that's a problem. Let's go to... Got 2 legendary swords. It would be good if the items still showed their rarity when they're in your inventory, because when I think of things like, you know, Diablo and stuff like that, I want to be able to see how much of my set is how rare, and at the moment I have to sort of scroll over them to see that these 2 are common. I've got common armors on, got 2 legendary swords and rare boot and belts. I'm going to put that hat on just because it's funkier than the other one. Stack these potions again. Look at this guy. It's drizzed or something. Oh no, this is not going well. Am I going to be able to do it? I don't know how I feel about that sort of situation where you can't do anything about it if you're going to die. Keeps giving me blue potions that I can't really use because I'm a no-brain barbarian himbo who can't use the staff. I haven't been leveling up. That's very smart. So that's why I died, because I had these points to spend and Okay, that's interesting. There is a cool kind of flow state there. There's definitely some points in the game where you just can't do anything, which is a bit of a shame, but I do kind of want to play again, which is ultimately what you want. Let's go back and let's be a wizard this time. Is that a wizard? It looks more like a druid. It's a bit too grubby to be a wizard. Hello, I'm Mr. Intelligence the Wizard. Right, let's take that. There is something about this layout that makes it very hard for me to focus on what is happening in the top left. I'm not sure if that's a problem or not. But I do wonder if shifting the fight down to the bottom left might just put it in a better location for the eye. I don't know why that's my gut feeling, but it is.
Instead of spending months on months making this inventory system as just part of a larger game, he's made it the main focus, which has led to a smaller project and, more importantly in terms of whether anyone else wants to play this, an interesting new take on something. And in this case, and this is the reason why I said it was a good creative strategy, these things go hand in hand, making a smaller, more manageable game and making a game with an interesting, unique selling point.
Well, he was rubbish, that filthy little druid. Right, let's go dexterity, who is a lady elf. I'm just assuming grey things are made of metal and therefore heavier than things that are brown. These lovely Uggs. Look at those lovely Uggs. Look at this guy. What could be more hardcore than a skeleton? What, a red skeleton with a really big sword. Okay, I'm going to try a balanced guy this time, whatever that means. Start with a lovely knight helmet. Look, praise the sun. Look at them, these skeletons are having a nice party. There aren't many points where I'm like bored or don't have anything to do. There is a constant flow state here, even if some of it is just putting things in the bin. When I think of this type of inventory, I think of games like Resident Evil or Deus Ex, and I do tend to associate it a bit more with having to like rotate items to fit them in together and having some L-shaped items, you know, like having an axe or even a boomerang that is like a awkward shape that requires you to rotate things around in the inventory would really make the most of this core puzzle of the inventory management. Start putting my potions over this side of the inventory so I have less far to drag them. This part of the game feels like it could be a bit of a problem. When you're in one of these boss fights, there's a long health bar and you're just sitting and waiting and you're see, look, it looked like I was going to win then, and he got just one really good roll. It felt quite unsatisfying. Like, I didn't feel like I could do anything to prepare for that, to stop it from happening. At the moment, I'm finding most things in this game quite interesting and satisfying. It's getting me in a flow state, but there's nothing I can do to prepare for that situation to kind of take the edge off and make it feel like if I'm fighting Mr. Red Skeleton and I die miserably, it's my fault. Right, and that's where you want to end up with, is with the player feeling like their failure when they die is a failure to prepare rather than just randomly losing. Look at this guy. He needs some moisturizer or something. Oh, the belt's too heavy. Oh, that's why it's so heavy. It's got 4 potion slots on it. Just running around naked with just a sword and a shield. Weight 3. So I was struggling a little bit with the classification of the weight because it's done in sort of numbers that then don't seem to bear any relationship to this bar for my carry limit.
I've said previously that no one cares you're a solo developer, and no one cares that you're a small team. No one cares about the limits that you have on what you can do. They just want to play a game. In order to finish a game, you do have to be sensible about the scope of what you can personally do in 6 months or 3 years or however much time you allow yourself to do that. You still need it to satisfy the audience. Inventory Quest is a really good example of one way of doing that well, of how having a minimalistic game concept that cuts out a bunch of stuff can lead to a gameplay that is inherently appealing because it offers something different. It's not enough to make a minimalistic game just because you want to do less work. You have to pursue that minimalism in a way which leads to an interesting experience for the player. There are 2 different forces here. There's what do players want to play? Well, they want to play an original take on something they already like. What do developers want to make? Well, they want to make a game that they feel proud of, that they can actually finish without dying. So you want to make a game that is as small as you can, but you want to pursue a minimalism that leads you down a path of making something unique. And this game is such a fantastic example of one of the ways that you can do that. Thanks for joining us today at the Indie Game Clinic. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I do videos like this where I play indie games that are currently being made and give my professional opinion as a game designer. And I do other types of videos where I just talk about game design and creativity more generally. Please subscribe if you want more of that. If you want to do other things to support the channel, have a look in the video description down below. I am starting a Patreon, and when there are enough subscribers on there, there will be a Discord community for this channel where come and hang out, talk about game design and geek out about that kind of stuff. Just have a look at the video description for more details on that kind of stuff. Back to the review.
I need another weapon really, because this sword is taking up all of my carry space. I'm gonna be some crazy magic knight with the stuff, because I can. Wait, can I upgrade this? Yeah, this bar was bigger earlier, so if I upgrade my strength, I guess I can carry more stuff. I do wonder if there might be a... top damage, 87. Right, I'm going to go back and play as the intelligence character one more time, because that was the one I sucked at most. So I do wonder if, we've used very standard fantasy RPG stats here. I do wonder if, given how interface heavy this game is, when we have an experience point, if there might be better ways of tying these to the things they upgrade. Because at the moment we've got 4 stats, and I can sort of think about it a bit and think, oh, maybe strength upgrades my weapon attack, or maybe it upgrades this bar. But if there's one of these that just does one thing, like vitality puts my health bar up, it's like, why don't we kind of make that association more strong somehow? I'm not sure how you would do that. Maybe it's like when I hover over one of these things, it kind of could highlight the elements of the game it's impacting. It could kind of highlight, if I hover over vitality, it highlights my red bar. If I hover over strength, it highlights my weapon. I'm not sure. I mean, it seems like stuff people should just be able to work out, but you do want to make it as easy for them as possible, because you've seen how much of a dumbass I can be about this stuff, and I have a doctorate. 2 staffs. Oh, Jimmy 2 staffs. See, this is what I want to see. Look, I've got little zaps coming out from my magic attacks. That's good. That's like RPG Maker 1998 stuff. Ooh! I've got a fancy pentagram. Upset some satanic panic people with that one, which is... it's kind of what you want to aim to do with your RPG, really. See, right, we're back in that situation now. Not much I can do here. I either win or lose. Right, drink your potions. Put the other one in there. Yeah, that was better. Yeah, the moments like this where you see, like, this is the first time I've seen this item, the first time I've seen this hammer, really satisfying. And this situation where I'm playing a wizard, so I have to throw them away, is it's kind of fun, because it means that I'm not going to get to see use that thing until the next time I play with a different character. There's something quite interesting about getting the wrong item for the character you're playing. I don't mind it, even though it should be a bad experience. Where would that go? Is that a weapon? Ooh. That ring. I can feel the sort of speed, the required speed of the clicking and dragging going around. I think another thing that would be really satisfying here is if there were more stackable items, because stacking the potions is quite a compelling part of the minigame. If there was an element of collecting items that were pure loot items, like gems or coins as well, then you would have these annoying split-second decisions to make, where it's like, oh, do I throw away this big 2x2 gemstone that's taking up my inventory because I don't want to lose another item? I think there is really a kind of a bedrock for a really strong game here. It is quite compelling, and oh, look, what a new skill. I'm not sure how I got that avoidance skill. I think it is because I beat a boss, because I beat the first boss. Doesn't tell me what that does. I think in roguelikes, when I unlock stuff in the metagame, where it's like you go back and you start a new run, but you can do a thing differently. I always appreciate when those things have drawbacks to them as well, rather than just making the whole game easier, because it feels like you're unlocking different game modes then. Rather than just like feeling like you're cheating because you're upgrading everything in the game. You're, you know, Cult of the Lamb does this with fleeces, where you unlock new fleeces and most of them have some sort of drawback to them. They don't just make the whole game easier. I do wonder if some of the information that's on the items that comes up in this left-hand panel, if it could just be indicated through symbols in the frame. I think there are pros and cons to needing the player to sort of mouse over things and then look over here, but I do think if you're going to have this information panel over on the left-hand side, which corresponds to any item you hover over, whether it's an item on the paper doll or an item in the inventory, I do wonder if this panel should be in the middle, because kind of hovering over items right over on the right hand side and then seeing the information right over on the left hand side feels very strange. I would question this decision of having the information panel right over here on the left, because sometimes it corresponds to items here and sometimes it corresponds to items here. Maybe it should be in the middle, but then you'd have to drag items across it, so it's I mean, making this sort of game is always gonna just raise loads of these sorts of UX and menu design questions, because you are playing around with what people usually expect from these menus, so you want to follow best practice there, but it is the core game, so there are parts of it where you maybe want there to be some friction. You know, you want there to be a distance that you have to drag things, or a place that you have to remember to look, because that's where your game mechanics are. So you need to experiment with a lot of these things and see where it all goes.
If this were my game, I'd still try to be quite open about the possibility of moving the entire interface around to see how it feels in different configurations. So maybe even trying it with the combat in the middle, with the combat lined up vertically, so it's like we're looking at our hero from behind and they're facing a monster. That might put you in a position where you start needing to have to do a couple of simple attack animations, but there's still plenty of time to make this a collaboration and to get some other people involved doing some art and stuff like that. Maybe this project is in a place now where it's a good time to start talking to other people to help out with the pixel art and art resources so that you can focus on the gameplay and the programming.
Maybe it's because we don't have icons for things like armor, like we don't have a shield icon for armor and stuff like that. It's all in text. I'm sort of just very much relying on the rarity colors, and I think this is a little bit too hard to read as quickly as the game requires you to read it. You know, if you imagine this 2x2 block of these gloves was a like a tile, right? And it had some of these stats printed onto it. So instead of saying armor 0.55, it has half a shield, and the weight has like one of these symbols. Maybe there's a way of putting all of the information on here so that you don't have to read this panel, because I'm not sure about it being a speed reading game. I'm not sure if that is testing the skill that you want it to test here. I think being able to see all the information at once, see all the symbols at once, and make snap decisions based on that might be closer to what you want. I'm not sure. We'll see what other people watching think as well. Yeah, this stuff like this crit +2, stun +7, some of the items change your base stats as well, they give you more dexterity or whatever. I think I would like to be able to see that information more quickly, and I think having more items come out that boost these stats would lead to some better snap decisions. I think if I can see the rarity of each item all the time, and then there is some indication on the item, or even if just like mousing over gives me the tooltip for the item information just above it instead of over here on the left, there'll be a lot more for me to base my decision making on. I think having little symbols for what the items do on the actual tiles of the items might be really helpful. Smashed broke my axe on that guy. One more go, one more run. It definitely has one more turn value already, which is what you want in this sort of thing. And then I've been sticking items in the other hand and not really thinking about I'm losing a bonus by doing that. Again, I'm thinking about the stacking of potions. I think if you were occasionally collecting items that were just absolute trash, that could be an amusing way of filling the user's inventory up quickly as well. Like there could be particular enemies that you come across that when you're fighting them, your inventory is just getting full up with, you know, like, depends where you want to go tonally with this and how silly you want to make it, but let's say I come across a giant chicken, right? Like an evil possessed chicken, and when I'm fighting it, it's just constantly filling my inventory up with eggs. And then I have all of these eggs that I have to drag out of my inventory. That would be a really fun use of the mechanic. If you want to stick to more like dark 80s fantasy, there's probably less silly ways of doing that with the same concept of having the inventory fill up with some object that you have to quickly get rid of. But obviously you've got the core puzzle of just quickly judging if something is junk and throwing it away. I think having some items that are always junk but they just fill up your inventory really quick could be a fun sort of a thing to kind of make it feel like certain enemies are interacting with you differently, right? Maybe they're not doing... maybe you have an enemy that doesn't do much damage, but the whole time you're engaging with it, it fills your inventory up in a really irritating way and you have to respond by throwing stuff away really quickly. Yeah. I'm going to level up my intelligence and become a spell orc, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. That's my quest now. I've decided, yeah, I'm a spell orc now. Down with stereotypes. Smash my spellbook. Double damage. Yeah. That felt great, right? Like making that split-second decision to take the shield off to double my damage output. That felt really good. It's a Slenderman. Slenderman. Being silly trying to make the strength character into an intelligence character, but this is a good way to try and playtest games of this sort that have upgrading, and have someone playtest it who's going to try and do something weird with it. Because if you have a game where you have different character builds and it's possible to start as one character build and build towards another, then you're onto something in terms of the level of flexibility that your system has, I think. Rare find. That gives me HP stealing and chance to find rare is up. Again, there's just so much information in this corner panel on this item that I guess you could say that the speed reading is part of the gameplay and maybe that's okay, but I'm not sure if it's the skill that you really want to be testing in this. I unlocked another thing. Let's see what that is. Stun. Plus stun.
Like I said earlier, I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about the boss fights and the position they put the player in. Waiting to die and not being able to do anything about it feels really frustrating. Then again, the feeling of waiting to see what happens is a kind of edge of your seat feeling. It's very similar to what feels a bit gambly and a bit slot machine-y actually, but that's not an inherently bad thing. You just need to think about whether that's what you want this to be. I think in games where it does build up to a big single boss fight where you might need particular items or stats, it makes sense to foreshadow which boss you're getting so you can prepare for it, and then you end up having a meta game. It's like, I know that I'm going to go up against the Lich, so I need to make sure my strength is really high because he's going to drain that or whatever. Just some way of foreshadowing what's coming up so that you can plan for it. Unless you go down the other route, which is to give players more to do during that boss fights. And I think this leads into my next point and thinking about how to use the inventory management in more novel ways than you're already doing. So iterating on the mechanic of stacking items, maybe stacking treasures together, stacking other things, messing around with different item shapes and maybe having rotation of items, and having a set of ways of putting more problems into the player's inventory, because the player is the inventory manager, right? The player isn't the character. So when we're in a long combat with a boss, we're not really doing anything. But let's say that boss is a giant slime monster and they are putting blobs of slime in your inventory that spread and you have to get rid of them. Whatever that is, I think if you can come up with bosses and mini bosses that feel like they are giving you a unique and novel way of having to interact with your inventory items, that's really going to make this game shine, because that means your bosses, rather than just being a difficult stat block for your character to auto battle against, they become a different roadblock to the player and require them to engage with those inventory management mechanics in a slightly different way that's going to be unique the first time they encounter it for each boss, and something that they can learn and have this additional level of mastery. But because the bosses don't occur so often, it's going to take you a few attempts to really learn how that mechanic works for each boss, whether it's slime spreading in your inventory or your items getting knocked back into the inventory or whatever it is. I think there's a lot of design space there to play around with and think of other ways that the inventory or the item slots on the player can be used to do different things with the gameplay. And I'm really excited to see what you do with this next, because I think this game is already really promising. It has a lot of the qualities that you want from this sort of game. When you die, you kind of want to have another go straight away. I just think that because it has this unique premise of being just about the inventory, then whenever there's an issue in the game design, like for example, not feeling like I have any agency during boss battles, the best way to approach that is going to be thinking about the inventory management mechanics first, because that is where our main decisions live as a player in this game.